listening to the Platinum Standard in Paranormal Talk, Paratopia, with Jeff Ritzmann and Jeremy Vaeni.
Jeff Ritzmann.
And Jeremy Vaeni.
If you just heard a voiceover, man, that must be a 2016 Paratopia Oculus.
That's right.
Can you also hear the hammering in the background, by the way?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not at all.
There's construction going on. Don't be alarmed, people. Don't be alarmed.
Don't be alarmed.
So 2016, and I seem to remember seeing on Facebook, I think it was New Year's, maybe, something about your dad seeing a UFO. Or was this
that's
Christmas?
right.
Yeah, what happened there? Tell us about this.
Well, my parents, my mom just turned 74 today. Today was her birthday. And my dad is almost 10 years older. So they come for New Year's Eve, but they don't stay much past 12. So pretty much as soon as the clock strikes 12 and the kisses and hugs are given out and Happy New Year's are given, they're grabbing coats. And so that's what happened this year as well. And Dad usually goes out and starts the truck before Mom gets in. And so he was out there and we were standing in the kitchen talking to Mom, and he knocked on the door and he had a really weird look on his face and he's motioning for me to come out. And when I got about halfway down the carport, he said, "What do you think this is? Look at this." And I look over to what I'm pretty sure is probably the southwest. Definitely towards the water. I will say that. Were about 6 quite bright red lights, not moving at all, completely motionless, not any particular pattern or form. And I ran in to get my small recorder to see if I might be able to get them. They were extraordinarily bright, but as I stood there, they kind of went dimmer by about 20%. And by the time I got back out and had put batteries in the recorder, because I wasn't prepared, there was only a couple left and they were quite dim at that point. I don't know what they were, but I do know that people in the area saw them. There's a Facebook group for my community, and I went ahead and I took the leap. I said, "Look, New Year's Eve, right after midnight, we saw quite a lot of strange lights in the sky, very red, very luminous, and looked like they were towards the water." I got some people who said, "Yes, I saw those. They were very strange. They were right over my house. They actually live on the water. I'm about 2 blocks from the water." And nobody seemed to know quite what they were. I kept hunting around, kept asking people questions, and I did get a response from one man who said that he had heard, he didn't see them, but he had heard that someone down by the water on a place called Rumsey Island had set some Chinese lanterns adrift. And so that may have been what they were. But I will say, if they were Chinese lanterns as far away as Rumsey Island is from me, and that's not that far, but it's further than the luminosity I would think I would see out of a Chinese lantern from that kind of distance. So we're talking about distance plus height. So we're talking quite a distance, definitely over a mile, for me to see that. And for it to be that large and luminous, that was some hellish lanterns, if that's indeed what they were. But I have no idea. I have no idea what they were. I didn't get much on the imaging equipment. Some people did send me some pictures through Facebook, but they're just lights in the sky, so it's really no telling what they were.
Well, did this have any of the earmarks of the phenomena? I mean, was it responding to you or your dad in any way? Or
no, I wouldn't say so. No, I wouldn't say so. It was really, despite the fact that he had said that he was sitting there outside. He said, "I didn't want to stop looking and come to the house for fear that I might miss something." He said, but they came up rather quickly in the sky. He said they actually illuminated in the sky, which again is odd for a Chinese lantern. Usually they would be lit already because the heat from the flame is what propels them upward. So he says they turned on in the sky. So, but no, I got no sense of weirdness from it or response from it in any way.
What about fear? Were you afraid?
I mean, no more uneasy than I would be if I saw a strange light in the sky. I mean, I definitely was a little concerned, but I wasn't freaked out or terrified by it.
And do you ever get the sense of proximity from a UFO encounter that you do from the visitors or whatever you want to call them?
The proximity feeling? Do I get that from
just a UFO sighting?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you have that with this?
That's where that started. No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I didn't. No. And usually when I have the proximity feeling, it's, I mean, once you see it, there's really no need for a proximity feeling. The proximity is when you barely see something or you don't see anything at all, but you just get a sense of a very, very strong, overpowering sense of presence. And yeah, I've got that in both counts from that. But once you see
no
it,
spider senses tingling before.
No. But once the proximity is or once the thing shows itself or the phenomena shows itself, the proximity feeling is just validated. It's not so much that continues on.
Very good. Well, I had an interesting New Year myself. On New Year's Eve, I actually bought a place with my other partner. And by I bought a place, I mean she bought a place.
Right.
But for some reason, in her infinite kindness, she likes me to say we. So
okay.
We bought a place. And it's amazing. It's 17 and a half acres. There's it's a house and a workshop and all this sort of stuff, which we're going to convert.
I saw it's beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're going to convert that into, probably 2 separate apartments. One, a mutual friend of ours will be living in, and I won't say more than that until everything happens. And then the other will probably, I don't know, use for friends and family who want to visit or rent out to vacationers, however desperate we are for money. I don't know. But I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous place. And there's, part of that acreage is this flattened lava field that, I guess the original owners had bulldozed because they were going to set up an orchard on it. It's about football field size, I would say. And I mean, you get a view of the mountain and a view of the ocean, and it's just ridiculous.
Neat.
And yeah, so we got to do something out there, bring people to the island and do speaking things there or something.
Yeah.
But interestingly, so we spent a lot of time with this realtor, and, I guess he was asking about what I do, and she might have told him, I don't know, about the UFO stuff, podcasting and all of that. And he did the thing that I do, funny enough, which is he pretended to be skeptical and laughing at it for a while until he figured out what my point of view was. And then he opened his mouth and started telling his story, which was that now he admits that he's had dreams that are very lucid and in fact dreams of like waking up in his bedroom and it's just like his bedroom and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't know really whether this is a dream or not. Like that's sort of where he hides and says, well, I don't know and I can't prove it. But essentially he told me that when he was living with a girlfriend, he believes she was abducted. And, he had woken up and there was this blue light that sort of came into the room. And I guess she was nowhere to be found, that sort of thing. I can't remember if he saw beings or not, but it was all this sort of very quick thing where she wasn't there. I don't remember all the details of it, but the sort of bottom line for him was like that she subsequently lost a pregnancy, but it just like disappeared, like you always hear. And they never spoke about it. They never talked about this, and they had broken up. And I guess, remained friends through the years, and he brought it up years later. And they had never spoken about UFOs or aliens or any of that sort of thing. And he said to her, you remember the, our pregnancy that went missing? Do you think that could have been an alien abduction? From the night before, do you think? And she just said, I don't want to talk about that. Let's never talk about that. And I said, well, did she say it to you like you're crazy because you always talk about this? And he said, no, like I said, I've never spoken to her about this stuff. So it wasn't like, oh, shut up, that's stupid. It was as if she was saying, yeah, I know about all that and I don't ever want to talk about it. It was like that kind of thing. It was like, huh, that's interesting. So this is the only time that you've ever had that, something like that happen? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. And then cut to a few days later, and he brings it up again because, once you start talking about this, you want to talk about it more once you've got a sympathetic ear. And I was trying to get him to come on the experience, but he was saying he doesn't have any evidence that it happened, so he would feel stupid. And he's like, as soon as I have evidence that any of this happened, I'm like, well, nobody has evidence. That's the whole problem here. So
the operative question here would be, do they have evidence of the pregnancy at all?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, is there a doctor confirming, yes, she's pregnant,
Right.
I mean, whenever I hear those things, that's the biggest thing that I always think of is like, well, was this a EPT or a doctor visit?
Right.
So.
Well, so in the course of our second conversation, and I said, so nothing like you've never had, because he was adamant that she was the abductee here and he was just a witness to it.
Right.
And I said, you've never had anything, not anything. Well, he's like, well, and then he starts talking about sort of these, I don't know, psychic premonitions he's had and synchronicities up the yin yang and all that. Okay, fine. And then he's like, well, and then there was when I was a little kid, and this is a guy who's in his 70s now. He's like, when I was a little kid, these balls of light would come into my room, and I don't, he said they would sort of communicate with him. They wouldn't talk. He doesn't remember what they would say, just that he got the impression that they were from another world. I thought, okay, that's something. So I don't know what to make of all that, but I just thought it was interesting. It's like, of course, the realtor that I have is this guy, and so you go one of two ways with that. Is that a coincidence that Jeremy Vaeni, this guy, gets that realtor? You could say that, or is it evidence that this really is happening to so many freaking people?
Oh yeah,
I think you're gonna get the realtor who says that because
I think the latter. Yes, yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I've said, I said since the early Paracast days. Everybody remember when I was on that show? Good Lord. I don't know how many years ago that's been, but I said it then. I think this is a lot more widespread than people think. I mean, you mentioned at your grandma's funeral that you had family members coming up saying, "Oh, you're into this? Oh, here's my story." And I had the same thing. I mean, literally, I've had people. I've run into people at the hardware store. I mean, I've talked before about being in line at an old Home Depot type store called Heckinger's, which I don't know if that was nationwide or just on the East Coast, but I was behind a guy who said was talking to another veteran. They both had their hats on with the unit numbers or their ship numbers or what have you, and he said, "Yeah, I was in Roswell. That's where the aliens crashed." And I was like, "Excuse me." Can we talk?
Well, what's kind of interesting about that is like this was to me a reverse of that situation, which is like he was adamant about the coast to coast stuff and this is aliens from another planet and that sort of thing, X-Files.
Oh yeah,
and he's asking my opinion, and I kept trying to blow it off because I don't like talking about this stuff. It's too complicated.
Right. It's not it's not an easy conversation.
But I finally did. And, I got into, the fairy folklore and trickster theory and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And he would, but still go right back to the alien stuff. And yet when he talks about balls of light in his room, didn't specifically say they were alien, but just had the feeling they were from another world.
Right.
I mean, that almost fits in with fairy folklore literature, doesn't it?
Sure.
So it's almost
absolutely.
like he's sort of giving evidence to the very thing I'm talking about while poo-pooing it. Whereas you've got the guy who's like giving evidence to Roswell. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is across the board. I mean, people are, and isn't it interesting? I mean, I've run into people that way as well, where you start talking about, you start talking about trickster theorem, or you start looking at folklore and how that kind of ties into this. And I mean, right down to the missing pregnancies and what have you. I mean, that's something I think that people deliberately just kind of go, yeah, but aliens, and they don't, I don't know what that is that I guess what it is that, they don't want to associate their experience with seeing fairies. I mean, that's really, when you start talking about folklore, you're already too deep for them. But then again, when they really think about that kind of idea, it's like, well, I wasn't abducted by fairies, or I didn't see fairies. Well, no, you saw balls of light, which are kind of how fairies are seen. That's an area most people don't even want to entertain that kind of thought, that line of thinking. And I just recently, I mean, maybe a month ago, I had somebody refer me to a couple who had a pretty potent experience on the water, in a boat, in the water. And this was down towards DC and the Potomac. And these people, their lives are upside down. I mean, it's like, they're talking, I mean, the female of the two, it's a couple. And the female is extraordinarily paranoid. Is basically thinks people are watching her, people are following her, they know what's happened to them, and they don't know. And he, on the other hand, is, I guess the best way to describe him is he's kind of filled with a sense of wonder about it. He speaks very eloquently about it. He very much, he's got a command of the English language that allows him to kind of describe this with a real graphic sense of speech. And so he's at wonder about it, whereas she is completely paranoid. But neither of them want this kind of experience again. And yet they're having some weird things happen at night. They're having strange electrical things going on. They're having things going on with their phone and computers that they can't explain. Computers booting up, cameras shutting down. Their entire home is basically drop cammed. I mean, they've got it set up in nearly every room in the house and outside, which they had beforehand. But, you try to bring up things like, look, this thing is responding to you. You didn't have this experience before. Is that correct? And both of them, in all honesty, have not said to me, well, I might have had something. When they said, no, there's never been anything like this. And all of a sudden, we've had this pretty potent experience on the water. We were both wide awake. Neither of us were drinking or using drugs. This is all very clean. And the minute that you mention something along the lines of, this is responding to you. So if you want this to cease in your life and you want to get back to normal, you need to reassume your routine. This happened when they were on vacation, by the way, a non-routine time, which I explained that to them. I made them a chart basically saying, here's how the kind of deviation happens. And this is why I think this is what happens to you. The man responded to it as I would have expected him to. She completely blew it off. And it always fascinates me that people like her say they don't want the event to repeat itself. They don't like the intrusion of the strangeness into their lives. But yet, they approached a friend of mine about me and said, do you think he'd be willing to talk to us about it? So I have some kind of gravitas for them to ask, to basically, have someone refer me to them. And so when I give them what I think, one takes it to heart, and the other one completely ignores it. And their personalities couldn't be more different in response to the phenomena itself. I did not personally experience anything in their home. I was there for several hours the first time, and maybe an hour afterwards at another date. But he reports that neither one of them, since getting back to work, since falling into routine, have had very much going on. But there are still little peekaboos here and there. But she is still extraordinarily paranoid, both about the phenomena and about what she perceives to be some kind of surveillance. She's very much an X-File type of person. She believes people are following her, that they know about what this is, and now that the aliens are interested in her, these people are now following her, et cetera, and so on, which I've encountered before. And usually that settles out after they realize there is no one following them.
Well, you know what plays into that is probably the electrical disturbances.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you got cameras shutting down and it was hard for them to show me exactly what was going on. But at a certain point, whenever he would walk by a camera, the camera would turn off or would freeze. And then after he had left the frame of the viewable camera, it would then begin broadcasting again. A drop cam basically streams to the web. So you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on your computer, through a secure site. And so when you look at this, and they've got all their set up, but you only have a space for so many outputs on the screen that you can see at one time. And I saw what he was talking about, and yeah, it's odd. And it happened to her once in the bedroom, where she walked in and it basically just froze up. But when she left, it stopped. When I asked Dropcam about something like that happening, their first response was, did someone step on a cord? Is somebody using a non-FCC approved device in the room? What could be interrupting the signal? And in the end, they said it could be just the quality of their internet. Could be somebody walking between a Wi-Fi spot in the house that's just in that special place where it interrupts service for a split second. It could be that. So I don't know.
Well, when you think about the totality of the electrical hijinks that go on in an experiencer's life, and that has gone on in your life, when you think about the totality of the various kinds of hijinks that have happened, and yet the machinery is okay, it goes on like normal. Is there anything that you know of that we've invented that can disrupt all those various types of things, from a computer to a DVD player, I don't know what, to a camera, without killing them? And if so, does that give us any clue as to how this thing works or what it's made of?
Well, I always go back to what Jacques Vallée said about this whole thing, is that basically the UFO phenomena was a lot of energy in a very small place, in a very small spot. And that is, by the way, the same thing that John Alexander remarked to me. He said, this is what, if any government portion is interested in this phenomena, they're interested in it not for weapons delivery system or some such nonsense as that, but they're interested in the potential energy.
Well, what does the word energy mean? Do they mean electricity? Do they mean
power
plasma?
of some sort? I don't know. Power of some sort. A great deal of energy in a very small spot. And I think NARCAP's work, at least with the light balls, I think that has kind of like plasma as a concentrated energy form. I think that's been borne out, at least in that respect. But what are we talking about with ghost phenomena? Is that the same mechanic? Is it tightly compacted energy in a spot that is transient and elusive and sparse? I mean, it certainly seems to be the same thing. We don't know what that is.
Well, do they even know if you have a plasma? Like, we know that there are plasmas that can sort of form and have a life of their own for a minute or so and then dissipate. But with like ghost phenomena or visitor phenomena that seems to behave in that way, shutting off electrical things or flickering lights or any of that sort of thing, it will do that whether there's a visible phenomena or not.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the same thing? Do we have any evidence that plasmas or anything that we know about can do it while it's visible or invisible before it's even formed or just after it's formed?
I have no idea. I have no idea about that. I know that the back when I was seeing strange, transparent, edgy shapes in the house that seemed to be moving as if on their own and alive and independent from my vision, that other people saw. Lee Townsend saw them. My wife saw them. And other people that would come to the house would see these things that I described as humps in the air. In any of the times that I saw that kind of thing, did I ever experience any kind of electrical disturbance of a lamp, a TV, a phone, anything? And that just makes me question, what is that versus, the classic, the classic phenomena of the car shutting off, the TV shutting off, or becoming disturbed, the light, either blowing out or short circuiting in some way. How does that work, and what part of the phenomena causes that, and what part doesn't? Because I've clearly seen phenomena where that's not been the case, where it's been nothing disturbed electronically at all. But yet very clear phenomena is present.
Well, I have a little, hypothesis I want to throw out there about fear in this that kind of gets into electromagnetism in a way, I guess, which is I was thinking about, I saw the movie The Forest, which is not a good movie.
Oh, you did go, okay.
I saw it, yeah. How did they screw that up? Okay, anyway, but it got me to thinking. In Hawaii, now Hawaiians are not prone to getting bitten by sharks. And the scientific, I think, rationale for this could be that they're not afraid of them because they believe that they're amakua, they're sort of spirit animal. They're very powerful, all of this. And so they don't have fear. So if they're not sending off fear, the shark isn't picking that up with their little nose, because I guess their noses can read the electromagnetic energy coming from your heart. So it can pick up whether your heart is racing or not. And that's what attracts a shark. And then you think about a dog. A dog will react to fear. If you run, the dog will chase you. If you're afraid, it might growl at you.
Right.
It's not that the dog wants to attack you. It's just that something about you is triggering it, this fear. Could that be what's going on with this phenomena? So it's not that fear attracts it in the sense that these are energy vampires that need your fear to exist here or anything like that, but that there's something in us that just innately attracts them, and then that's why the real reason that debunkers, when they go into a haunted house, don't see anything. It's not because the phenomena is a trickster and shutting off. It's because it's not picking up on their electromagnetic signal or whatever it would be, the science of it, to activate in the first place. What do you think about that?
Well, when it comes to ghost stuff, I mean, there's a lot of people in that field, at least, that have no fear of it, and yet when they go into a place, they're certainly open to it. They realize that, or I guess the best way to say it is that they know the phenomena that they're looking for is a reality. Whether or not they're going to come across it at that given time is hit or miss. And so they go in there with a completely open slate, but certainly biased towards witnessing phenomena. And oftentimes they witness phenomena. But a lot of them aren't especially fearful of them. I think the reason that skeptics rarely experience anything, with the exception of Michael Shermer with the radio thing, which we've talked about before, I think the reason is that they bring structure to anything they do. I think when they walk in the door, they've got a set criteria that they're going to follow, and there is that. I don't know how else to put it other than just to just to say that when they walk into a place, they're automatically skeptical. They're not going to see anything, and anything that they do see can be easily explained. I just don't think that their presence, and this has been, I believe, documented to some degree, that their presence is not conducive to phenomena showing up. But I don't think it has much to do with the fear of it, as it does that they're just their presence brings a sense of structure and order and accountability to it. Whereas, when it's an experiencer or when it's a ghost hunter, they're already in that marginal situation of you're already going there to look for it. And so why wouldn't it show up for you? Because everybody's going to doubt you because of what you are. Whereas a skeptic is accountable, if they go back to their cohorts and say, I saw a ghost. I don't know how to explain this, but I saw a ghost. Then automatically that person's going to be relegated to the not so great a skeptic bin anymore. And Shermer took an enormous amount of heat for what he wrote in the article about his wife and their wedding day and the radio that was her dad's. An enormous amount of heat for that. And I don't know that he's written another companion piece to that, but he basically said, it's things like this that rattles a skeptic to the core. And he's right. That does. But I might point out that the time when that event happened to him was on his wedding day in a grand anti-structural time in his life, in a liminal state because he's married and not married. He's right before the ceremony. He's obligated, but he's not married. So he's in that in-between stage. And all of that, the entire situation, if you read it, we'll put a link up on paratopia.net with this episode. If you read it, it's perfect. It's textbook, literally textbook, to Hansenism theories. I mean, I think he wasn't looking for anything like that. He wasn't prepared for anything like that. He certainly wasn't acting in a kind of investigative way. For that brief moment, he was not a skeptic. It was only after the fact. I think in the moment, I don't think there are skeptics in the moment. But it's who you are. It's why you're there. It's the purpose for which you bring to the environment or the place or the event that I think is contingent on what exactly you're going to experience.
So do you think that the ghost hunters and UFO hunters or whatever hunters they are.
Sure.
That are not afraid, like you're saying, they've been through this before. Do you think that they are in the moment with it? Do you think that they are necessarily at a heightened state of awareness because they are looking for the unknowable?
I mean, you could argue it either way. You could say they're in a heightened state of awareness because they know what to look for, or they're peaked for that kind of bump in the night type thing. Or you could say that they're immediately marginalized because of what they are. I mean, I always hold sway that, you could put the team from NIDS in a haunted house or an alleged haunted area, reportedly haunted. You could get the guys from NIDS to go in there, and they might get very little, if anything. But you could put two plumbers from Rhode Island in there, and they would have a groundswell of activity. And both would probably be right. I think that if you're peaked to see it, as I'm sure the NIDS guys probably were, I mean, after their experiences at Skinwalker Ranch, I'm sure they have been to other places. I'm sure there's been other investigations that they have done, not maybe as big a group, but certainly members of that group have done other things. But they're much more academic. They bring structure, but they bring open structure to it. So it is almost anti-structural in that sense. So, I think I do think people are more peaked for it, but it's like I've said before, these ghost hunters that you see on the internet where, I mean, everybody's got a better logo than the next guy, and it's all about presentation and having hot girls on the team and having all sorts of archaic equipment or cryptic equipment that nobody could quite figure out what the baseline is, what it's doing, but it's only what you're told it's doing. And I refer to them not as the black T-shirt brigades, but as the uber douches of the paranormal. These are people that I believe will record more authentic evidence than not because of who they are. Because if any of these people were to take this to a serious venue to be authenticated or to be studied further, they would take one look at these people and say, no, sorry, it's not happening. You didn't collect your data right. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. Contamination, this, that, and the other. But, there is a reason why a scientist talks about so much contamination of an investigation on site, and by in turn, why the ghost hunter must have some kind of static generator going to record EVPs, or at least that's the one of the going trends. That's one of the hot new trends, is to have either an echo box running to compound noise or a static generator to compound noise. So both accomplish the same thing. They throw in contaminants into the mix. And this is where phenomena often does show itself, in the contaminants, in the marginal areas where this stuff exists.
I never heard that. How did that come about? I mean, they couldn't have come about because they realized that, because that seems too intelligent. Well,
I think it boils down to when Frank's box came out. I mean, that's basically it's a scanner. I mean, everybody remembers the old police scanners from back in the day, where it would trace up and down a series of frequencies, and if it caught a broadcast from a police station or a fire truck, it would play that. It would hang. Boop, it would hang on that frequency for a split second and play its tones, or you get a police call or what have you. This Frank's box worked a lot of the same way. It was scanning up and down the AM or FM band, the entire band, back and forth, and you would get pieces of words. And now, as absurd as it sounds, to say, I'm going to use this as an investigative tool for talking to spirits of the dead, you're going to use basically a radio that's picking up bits and bobs of where anybody can do this. Get an old radio with a dial and spin it back and forth really rapidly, and you'll hear like, hello, you'll hear different parts of voices, but then every once in a while you'll get that single voice, you'll get that single word. And I've heard people in my presence have conversations with something in this box. But do I look at that and go, okay, that's complete happenstance? We're trying to hear these words. We're anticipating what the response will be. And so anything that remotely sounds like that response, we're going to take as the response. And I think that's where a lot of this happens. Now, when they talk about something like that, being able to, you're able to pick up essentially it's ITC stuff, but it's EVP the same way. I mean, you're going to either go into a house that is bone silent. Okay. So I guess the premise came from the ITC world, where they would put a TV on a camera, and they would aim the camera at the monitor, and so they would get that video feedback that then becomes the conduit for faces and shapes and places to reveal themselves. And there has been some interesting things seen with that. So again, it's a carrier of some sort. It's a carrier wave of some sort, they think. But I think it's basically making as much noise as possible as a bed for them to say, I hear the word Jeremy in there, or I hear the word dead in there. It's like a Rorschach test. It
sounds like the equivalent of playing a record backwards.
It is. It's digital noise. It's digital noise. And now they've got it to the point where they're using echo boxes for that, which, I mean, you musicians out there, you'll know when you've got a digital delay and you hit a note, that note can repeat as many times as you want. And as you turn up the frequency of the delay or the speed of the delay, the feedback, you can get that to sound like a very warbled, it doesn't sound like an echo of a note anymore. It sounds like a feedback wave. This is what they're using now to do even more EVP work and claim that it's something else. Again, it's just taking the ambient noise in the room, and when that noise hits the mic, it is automatically generated over and over and over again until it's a sound bed of noise. And in that sound bed of noise, they feel they pick out words, voices, and the like. Sometimes I have to admit some of it is interesting. But again, it's like trying to do a pro investigation on a fairy tale, like we've joked around before. You've already got so much noise. How can you possibly say I'm picking out the word Jeremy out of that? And the latest thing that I've seen, which I just downloaded, is a program that mimics the Spiritcom. And the Spiritcom was kind of, again, a tubular kind of feedback that sounds kind of like this. And in that, you can hear disturbances in that. But again, if it's got a wire, it's a receiver. Okay? So anything with a wire has the potential to be an antenna. We need a way around that. We need a way to say there is no way that anything can be, transduced or brought in on the device that we're using to measure or to record with. So the Spiritcom works in a lot of that same way. This guy has done it digitally. He's put two carrier waves, together, or two waveforms together that make a specific tone. And again, you watch him use it. You see him do this on video, and he gets things where you can hear some semblance of a voice in between the waves. You can tell there's a disturbance in the smoothness of the waves that he's listening to. And it sounds very strange. It sounds almost like people who've had their voice box or their larynx removed, and they have to use the little vibrating thing to make their voice box work. It kind of sounds like that.
I wonder if this is an audio version of what you might hear in your head during binaural beats. Just because you had said two-tone. So is he putting together two tones and then you're... It
definitely sounds like two tones to me, yes. Like an upper and a lower tone, but at the same pitch. So you get that strange kind of duotone pitch that then... I don't know. If you look up Spiritcom, you'll certainly be able to hear it and see what I mean. There's like if you picture two waveforms, there's definitely something in between that still has to be some sort of wave, but there's a disturbance in there you can hear.
Has anyone ever used some sort of binaural beat recording technology to try to do EVPs? Or does that not even exist and I'm making that up?
I don't know.
I mean, what makes binaural beats? What goes into that? They record something, right? So could you record in binaural beat form an EVP and then form something in your head? I wonder.
I would think that what might be because I've listened to binaural beats before and have never gotten the same reaction twice. I don't know that just putting the tones out there would do anything. Although, who's to say? I don't know. It's another sound bed, so there's certainly the potential for it, I guess. But again, I think it depends on who's using it. I don't know. I always go back to the the classic saying, what do you look like? And the answer being, it depends on who's looking, I think that's a good analogy for what any tool somebody would use. I think it's the setting. I think it's the mindset of the person. I think it's the state of that person, if you want to call it that, the state. What is their state? I think it's got a lot more to do with that than it will ever to do with what frequency is it, or, what's the level of the brainwave activity being output. Although I don't know. I'm just saying, I think that's, I feel like that's got a lot more to do with it.
Well, let's go back to something, and maybe I'll end up revising my hypothesis here. When we talk about structure, when I think of anti-structure, as I've said a million times, I consider it to be the cultural lens through which we filter things is the thing that gets broken up, or the personal lens that gets broken up, and then something from the larger ecology out there has room to move in our perception. But it sounds like when you're saying structure, when you're saying that skeptics have structure, you mean something different. They have rules. They have a way to go about things that doesn't necessarily have to do with westernized thought so much, right? It's just
right.
It's just a protocol that they have. That would be
it's also
structure.
their standing. I mean, it's also when it comes to their standing. Because I'll put it to you this way: if skeptics were highly anti-structural, I'll put it to you this way: have you ever met a skeptical artist?
I think so.
I would love to meet that person.
I've met skeptical musicians. I don't know about just an artist.
Yeah, I've met skeptical musicians before, for sure. But not songwriters. I mean, there's a difference there for me in that respect. But, I'll put it this way. I mean, if skeptics lived an incredibly marginal existence, which they don't, they're accountable for everything, or they at least appear to want to be that. There is if they were to be anti-structural, I think they would cease to be skeptical about a great many things. I think that the proof is in seeing and experiencing. And if you can't experience and see it for yourself, then it's never going to be true for you, or it's never going to be at least what you and I feel are on the same wavelength about this, is that it's never going to be a phenomena that you're interested in. It's always going to be, that. I think that they bring, when they come to an investigation, and it doesn't matter if there are believers there or not, if they come to do an investigation of any haunted location or, and that's the easiest situation to use, they bring a sense of disbelief. They bring a sense of a sense of accountability to it.
Well, they preclude themselves from being able to find anything also by saying right up front, well, you can't trust your own eyes and ears anyway. Witness testimony
Correct.
doesn't mean anything, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, including
Right.
myself. And, you're automatically including yourself in that. So
Exactly.
you're not going to be a witness to anything because it's not going to matter, because the preponderance of evidence that they've come up with in science, or their version of it, goes the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, then structure is not just their belief, but it is time. It's time bound. It's repetition. Structure is something that is quote unquote proven through repetition, through memory, yada, yada. And so the thing, then maybe that fear, we've talked about fear, that heightened sense of fear is really, it galvanizes you and it brings you into the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the thing that the phenomenon is responding to? Not fear necessarily, but being in the moment. And skeptics can never be in the moment because they are such creatures of time. They depend on the past and on, past results, past research, yada, yada, that they could never be in the moment. And therefore this phenomena could never, break through that boundary of time with them.
I think if being in the moment means being open to it, then yeah, I think that's I think that would probably be true.
Yeah, psychological time. I'm not talking about, time by the clock.
I think it goes back to what my mom has said to me so many times, because I've asked her over the years. I said, why? Because I think people know well enough by now in this program that I get extraordinarily sick of this crap from time to time. And I said to my mom, why did I have to be involved in this? Why do I care so damn much about any of this? Why does it burn, to enact me to be interested at all? And she said, I think it's because you've always been open to it, just who you are. You've just been open to it. You accept the possibility that something can be, and so therefore, does that attract something? Is the attractant, like I've said before, is this whole phenomena about trying to manifest something to be perceived at all? Is it about being perceived? And so when you want to be perceived, you're not going to go to the guy who turns his back on you every single damn time. You're going to go to the person who's out there looking with open eyes into the abyss to see what looks back. That's the guy that you're going to show yourself to. That's the guy that you're going to be attracted to.
Well, let me ask you this. Does George Hansen ever say what the structure is that's being demolished in the moment of anti-structure?
Routine.
So that's it, just routine. And
I think it's routine, and I think that goes kind of across the board. I mean,
does he speak of it in terms of just is it just assumed that it's all cultures, or is it our culture? Is it westernized thinking?
Yeah, that I don't know. I know that a good portion of George's studies have gone into like African magic and ritual and all of these sorts of things. And these rituals, like you said before, when someone comes into contact with something paranormal, they feel the need to or has an unusual experience, they feel the need to cleanse that person. And so there's a ceremonial ritual that goes along with that kind of sets things right again, and people go on about with normal life again. So I think it is that confluence of anti-structural behavior, of being touched by something otherworldly, then demands some kind of cleansing ritual or some kind of something to put it right again. And I think that this is what back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was talking to people about this stuff, I said, I was unknowingly saying, just you got to pick a team. You either want to be on the team that experiences this or doesn't, and the best way to not experience it is to not give it the time of day, and to find something else to do. And that was kind of my mantra for people who didn't want this to happen to them. Like, get into something else. Get away from this. And that went for ghost hunting to, anything. Of course, ghost hunting and a haunted house and all that, that could be treated exactly the same way. Ignore it. Then go back to normal life and get yourself established in routine again.
What do you make of that? Then you were just talking about cultures that have this embedded in their culture, and then they have ways to cleanse it.
Right.
You think that is actually keeping it around, because instead of ignoring it, they're coming up with, magic and rituals and medicines to keep it at bay, and so that actually keeps it?
Well, it either might be that, or it might be that the ritual becomes the structure for which then all of the routine then follows out from that. In other words, as part of the ritual. That's routine. The ritual itself is a set of events that transpire in a certain order, done a certain way at a certain time. And so you could argue that itself is routine in some way or shape or form. But then to go on from that, I think George made the point at one point that, when somebody in the tribe is touched by something otherworldly, or they believe that they've seen a ghost or something like that, it almost mimics these days what I described to him, that a ghost group that I knew here in town that lasted for quite a long time. one of the things that they would do after a ghost hunt was they would all go to a diner and eat together. And so this group, to my knowledge, never had someone say, I had something follow me home, or I had something happen when I got home in my house. Did something follow me home? And George seemed to think it was enormously important to, like, for them it was this notion, and it doesn't really matter what their notion was. It's the act of getting together, sitting down, talking, eating. But their notion was when you walk in a place that the dead do, it's a strange feeling. You get a strange feeling about yourself. You get you're walking in the footsteps of the dead, and so to eat is to eat, and to smoke as well is an affirmation of your life. It's an affirmation that you are in fact alive. You are not of the dead, and that was kind of their outlook on that. This is just something that affirms us being of the living, and it affirms our life. But in fact, George thought that it kind of lent more towards getting them out of that mindset of the investigation and more into a mindset of being with people, sitting down and communicating, eating, establishing yourself into some kind of routine again, getting back to the normal world. And that then bonds the group closer together. That not only it's not like you leave the investigation and you just disperse from there and go home. That seems kind of a precarious thing to do these days, in my opinion. But they got together after this every single time. They would get together and talk and laugh and drink and eat and smoke and all of that and have a great time. And that left the investigation where it was. That left the spirits where they were. It seemed like that had some kind of bearing on their group's health, in other words.
Would you believe if a shaman... Now, a shaman is somebody who's the liminal person in the group, right? So,
well, it lives an anti-structural lifestyle, yeah.
Yeah, so they live between worlds, and they allegedly, bring back knowledge, and so from this knowledge come these cures and these
right.
Go down the list. Would you believe any of that?
Would I believe any of what exactly?
I guess
I've
never really asked you this before, but I mean, being someone who has had a sit-down chat with a being, but here in this world, you don't necessarily believe that anything he told you was literally true,
right?
Would you believe a shaman who does believe that, who believes that they've gone to the other side and had sit-down chats or however they get their knowledge? The knowledge that they bring back, do you think that's actual knowledge?
When you're talking about me or anybody else of that's had experiences, I mean, I think that when you're talking about us versus a shaman is, it's like McKenna used to say, or at least a friend of his used to say about the mushroom trip was that what he tries to do every time he consumes the mushroom is to stand more. And when he first said that, I thought, what, to stand to eat more, or to stand? No, to stand more means to stand in that place more and become more acclimated to that place, to that state of mind, to that being. And I think ultimately the shaman is a shaman because he is acclimated to that. He has been there so many times that he knows. He's very familiar with the foothills of where he is. Whereas me, you, a lot of other experiencers, we're not particularly versed in that. We can't decide what exactly to believe because maybe we're not hearing it with as virgin ears as he has. With that, it sounds an odd thing to say that the guy is more familiar with the territory than we are, but yet is still hearing it with virgin ears. But he sees it with a different set of eyes than we do. He's probably experienced several things that people of our culture would consider the utterly bizarre, the crazy, probably the pathological at some point. But to him, this is common ground. He knows what to look for. He knows what sticks out. And so I would think that at that point, he'd be better versed to bring something back. To stand means to bring something back. To stand means to be more familiar in that state. I will be the first one to say I am not familiar with that state. I have seen things repeatedly, but I don't consider myself to be a well-traveled experiencer in that sense that I know what to bring back or I know what's important. I still don't know.
Maybe we should switch.
Which is why I bring it all back.
Maybe we should switch tracks and just go over we'd put on the message board, which, by the way, people had clamored for, and then now they don't use. But at some point, somebody was using it. And we have there a thread for topic riffs, if anyone wants us to talk about something. And we've gotten, I guess, 3 of them that I can think of. While I'm pulling up that page, the one that I remember is someone asking us whether we consider, I guess, religious figures to be experiencers. And does anyone ever talk about them that way? And I remember, there have been books about the Bible and UFOs and that sort of thing. But are the people who wrote the Bible, would they be considered? It's hard to know because it's hard to parse out what's the politics and who wrote what and all that sort of thing when it comes to just the good old Bible. But what would you say? I mean, is this? Do we lump them in with this?
That's a good question. I mean, to me, it's. I mean, I don't even want to consider Roswell anymore because it's so old and it's so trod over with all sorts of garbage that you just don't know what to make of it anymore. And so to talk about religious figures as being experiencers, I really can't go there because, frankly, I don't know what I'm reading. I don't know. It's hard to know what's right historically. I mean, I think with like when Jacques Vallée did the book about the what was that? Wonders in the Sky. I mean, you're talking about UFO sightings from antiquity and up to the point of before the age of flight. So some of that you got to say to yourself, well, okay, it seems interesting, but how much has that story been embellished over the years? I mean, we're talking about largely folkloric tales. How much has that been embellished over the years? I mean, I wouldn't know what to believe when reading something like that. So I don't know. I wouldn't have an answer for that. I mean, if you're asking me if somebody like who was the founder of the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that there, I don't know what to make of that. All I do is and it certainly means no disrespect to anybody's religious beliefs, but I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of what I've read about him is that, he was arrested for, kind of being a con man at one time or another. And so do I believe he was an experiencer? No. The whole thing stands.
Well, he also, from what I recall, basically took the story from a writer friend of his. Mm-hmm. He's a plagiarist.
Okay,
it's a sci-fi story.
Well, yeah, absolutely it is. And so from that standpoint, I would have to say no. But does that mean that every important religious figure throughout history was that? No, it doesn't at all. But to that end, it's almost impossible. It's like wonders in the sky. How much of it can you really say, or can you really emblazon that with the stamp UFO phenomena? It certainly looks like it, certainly sounds like it, but Chris Albeck has just come out with another book about, antiquity UFO sightings. And we're not talking about ancient aliens here. We're talking about reports of strange things seen in the sky before there would have been strange things in the sky. And so, again, I ask the same question. Is this really, how important is this? Is it that important to really look that closely past? Yes, we acknowledge that these things have been seen before in antiquity. it seems obvious. Let's go from there. But can we build a case on that? I don't really think you can.
Well, I think it's important just in the sense of nailing down what is the structure of this. I mean, because when people think ancient, they think ancient aliens. They think, oh, they came here and built the pyramids or the Mayans or the whatever.
Right.
And so we need to parse out, okay, what does it mean to have had a sighting or some sort of encounter hundreds or thousands of years ago? Does that necessarily point to evidence that these are aliens that have interacted with us or created us? It doesn't, right? It doesn't, but I don't know. I think to some people it gives credence to that, right? To just say, well, you had this sort of visionary experience back then, therefore aliens.
Well, people back then thought, okay, therefore must build a church here. Right. I mean, that was in several of those stories, which is why I brought up the question to Jacques in our interview was, do you think, or I said, it seems to me that a lot of what these experiences are doing is influencing the path of religion. And he seemed to disagree with that. And I really remember what his answer was as to why.
I remember back in college, there was the great philosophical question. Can you apply the psychology of today to the psychology of yesterday? And so therefore even Hitler a bad guy? Or, keep going back, Attila the Hun,
right.
Witch hunts, were these, would you consider these bad if they weren't considered bad then at that time in that place, that sort of thing? To me, this kind of strikes at the same thing. It's like we want to say, well, those people couldn't properly define what was happening to them. It's aliens.
Right. Yeah.
Oedipus had an Oedipus complex. He didn't really.
It's too far back to ask questions. I mean, at this point, give me a break. It's too far back to ask questions. If 1947 is too far back to ask questions, then I would say the 6th century is definitely a little too far.
Well, actually, this reminds me. I wanted to ask you when you had the guy. This is a completely different tangent that I should have asked before. But the dude who told you about Roswell. Well, there were aliens in Roswell or whatever.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that? Because that's a story that you don't believe, right? And so when you hear somebody telling you that they've got firsthand knowledge of something like that, what do you do with that?
Well, I mean, I met 2 guys, and one of them was a photographer, and he had a completely different experience from the guy in the hardware store. The hardware store guy just basically told me that the one thing that sticks out in my memory right now is that he would get a call. He had gotten a call at least maybe once a year, which seems crazy to me, from who he said was a lieutenant. And this lieutenant would tell him, keep quiet about what you saw. And I said, well, what did you see? He said, I didn't see anything. He said, I didn't see anything. I wasn't out there picking it up. I wasn't driving the trucks. I didn't see anything. I was on the base. I didn't see anything. But we weren't supposed to talk about it. And I said, okay. Well, what was he telling you to keep quiet about? And he said, well, these days, he goes, I didn't hear from him for a year. And he said, then a couple years ago, he said, talk about whatever you want. It's all getting ready to come out anyway. And that was kind of the end of the story, So, I mean, what do I make of that? I don't know what to make of that. Like I said, I have no belief in Roswell. So, I think it's a lot of, he said, she said, and it's modern myth making to me. That's what it is. So I don't know. The guy didn't seem to be lying to me, but he said to the guy in front of him, yeah, where the aliens crashed. And that guy just kind of looked at it and went, oh, yeah. like real blasé about it. Oh, yeah. Is that where the aliens crashed? Yeah.
I'd like to buy a wrench.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to purchase some sandpaper, if that's okay.
Right. Roswell. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Next.
Right.
Well, this reminds me too. I don't know if it's Boyd Bushman. I get all of these names confused, but I just saw something on Facebook where somebody had one of these old timers who claimed to know something about aliens and Roswell and all this stuff, and
Right.
holds up a photograph of an alien that's been debunked.
Right.
Is that Boyd Bushman or is that someone else?
Who knows?
Okay, so X, old timer X, who has this elaborate story that they claim to believe, and then holds up a photo of a fake alien. And the question is, in the thread anyway, was why would somebody who really believes this then hold up a fake alien? And what do you make of that? I mean, some of these guys do seem to believe what they're saying, but then what they present as evidence is hoaxed evidence. Do you think that that's just age kicking in, or what do you think?
Well, there's a reason why they believe it. I mean, they believe it because there's a sense of gullibility there, and it could be age, Yeah, I mean, I've met people like that. I mean, I
just think people are being way. I think maybe people are being taking them way too literally when they are like, and this is exactly what I saw. Mm-hmm. Well, that may be, but it's not that picture that you saw, because that picture is nonsense.
Right.
But it might be an impossible argument, because they might be like, well, no, I know what I saw and it's this. And they might even believe that they saw that very thing and that that's a photo of what they saw.
Right.
But, this is just the fault of human memory, and we see this in witness lineups all the time.
Yeah.
I just watched the thing on Netflix, Making of a Murderer, where it's, this guy goes to jail for something he did not do, but he looks kind of similar to the guy who DNA test proves did. So is it so hard to imagine that they got it, the woman who adamantly got it wrong? No.
Right.
I mean, why is this any different? You're picking an alien out of a lineup of photos and going, this is my alien.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But then is it your alien in the first place? This is the other thing. Like, if they are lying, why would they all lie on their deathbeds? I guess maybe you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And some people, it's, the dude who runs the Roswell Museum wants to leave a legacy for his kid, or whatever it is.
I kind of think that's the reason for a lot of these. I mean, if you think that these people don't, I mean, I don't believe that anyone's being. I don't know that. Well, I guess you could say that they're being inherently dishonest about it, but I mean, who knows? We can't make that judgment because we have no idea what anybody else's experience has been with this stuff. But I mean, if you think for a second that these people don't see that, a multi-million-dollar corporation now wasn't started by some deathbed or bolstered by deathbed confessions. I mean, is it the people leaving their significant other or children with something when they have nothing else to leave them with? And they say, well, this might take care of them. I was this and I was important, and now I'm going to say this. It may not be true, but it'll give them a story that they'll be able to sell and make money off of. Maybe they can even start the next Roswell with this. Who knows? I mean, I know how far-fetched that sounds, but don't put anything past, anything in this phenomenon. I mean, we talk about the old people and these guys, they hold up a picture that's faked and this, that, and the other. Yeah, but I mean, do we know nothing about this phenomena, that it hides itself in the fraud and it hides itself in the fakery and the marginal and, and all of that? Yeah, it does do that. So this is why I say we really don't know. When it hides itself within those elements, it's very hard to differentiate. Did the person see this or did they not? I mean, I don't know. To me, it's all kind of a big soup pot. And there's a couple vegetables in there I don't like. It doesn't mean they're not part of the soup, So there you go.
While we're on the topic of age, now I'm not going to read anyone's names who wrote to us just in case they don't want their names read, but you'll know who you are. Somebody wrote about midlife crisis in the paranormal, asking, does paranormal amp up at times other than puberty? If it does fall along predictable lines, why has no one studied it this way when we used to search for predictable UFO waves?
Because nobody wants to connect it to people. Because that could be then tied to the Antichrist in all of this, which is the psychological.
Is it connected to any other times? I mean, have you ever had a midlife crisis, do you think? And if so, did you was that an anti-structural moment that invited this crap in?
Yes and yes.
Huh.
I don't know about midlife. I guess close to midlife. And oh my God, what am I doing? Yes, I've had those.
I hope. Well, how would you know if it's midlife until you've died? First of all,
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if I've had. I don't think I've had a midlife crisis, but
Well, you're like a fucking fairy tale. So, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to cuss on this.
beep.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, why has nobody studied that? Because that's too close to saying it's connected to us, because everybody who bears recognizing in this field by the populace that likes it, they all think it's completely external, nuts and bolts for the most part, and in no way connected to us. It's its own thing. And so I think to make the connection to say, why aren't we studying people who have increased experiences at midlife crisis or, that sort of thing? That's walking too close to that line that might lead someone to a psychological answer.
Well, actually, I've been doing that on the experience in a different way, which is talking to people who have hit bottom with alcoholism and had an experience.
Sure.
And that is what prompted them to be to sober up. And so then the question is there an anti-structural moment called hitting bottom where some people actually do open up to some other realm? And in both cases, which are completely different visuals and immersions into another, reality, seemingly, they're completely different, and yet the message is the same. So do you want to live or not? So is it that, or is it that, and I asked Tyler this on the show, actually, coming up next week, if the other option is that some of us need to speak to ourselves in the second person. In other words, our own inner voice saying, you better smarten up, dummy, isn't enough. We need a super deep inner voice pretending to be another person saying, you better smarten up, dummy. Then is there anything in brain science that tells us we would concoct an elaborate hallucination?
That's the third man,
like that?
right? I mean, that's what that is, right?
What's that?
That's the third man, right?
The third man? What's that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the, am I crazy, or do I remember reading about the third man thing when like people are mountain climbing and they get trapped in the ice and they are alone and stranded, that the third man is the voice in their head that tells them to do the things that they wouldn't remember to do. I seem to remember something about survivalists and the third man. I don't know. Look that up at some point. That speaks to that kind of thing where people are in serious, deep doo-doo, and there's literally no conceivable way out. And I seem to remember something like this associated with the guy who fell through the ice and was trapped for weeks, and there was a movie made about him. These people are like, they're facing death, period. And something inside of them gives this idea or gives this information like, well, you should do this or you should do that. And they referred to it as the third man syndrome. And so maybe it's got something to do with survival instinct or survivalists. So, because that sounds really familiar. I mean, if you're wasted on alcohol or drugs and you're, you got a matter of weeks before you're going to clip the edge of reality and leave this, mortal coil behind. I could see where that would be the point where something inside of you would snap and the third man would come to the fore and say, hey, dummy, knock it off, or we're not going to be here. So whatever you want to do, but.
Well, for the first person I interviewed, it was, in front of his, I guess, then wife, the room going completely white, and this voice saying, what is it going to take? What is it going to take? What is it going to take? Over and over again. And for the second person, which was Mr. Toilet Elf, it was, finding himself immersed in a visual, I guess, I don't know how you would coin this, of being on a beach, and he can't really move, but he can see these legs and feet, and of two people in robes, and they're saying basically the same thing. They're asking him, what do you want to do here? Do you want to live?
Right.
So these are two completely different experiences with a visual. So it's not just a voice in the head kind of thing.
Right.
Does that fit the third man thinking?
I suppose the visual component of it, I mean, again, I don't know what that could be. Is that, could you really relegate that to a hallucination, or, I mean, who's to say? I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar with that experience, so I don't know. But you certainly could, I certainly could make the case that if there's a third man that's, that kind of bringing to the forward, challenging the end user, if you want to call him that, if there's a visual that goes along with that, is that just like a dream quality type of experience, or were they awake? Or, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, in both cases, it changed their lives.
Who's to say that people don't have an experience, a spiritual experience at that moment? Because you're very much in a spiritual place, are you not? I mean, you're on the threshold of death. I mean, that's the critical choice.
Right.
So who's to say? I mean, God knows, it's certainly possible.
See, oddly enough, I wonder if I haven't had that with the waking up one day, wanting to go to McDonald's for that McGriddle, and my feet just keep on walking to Trader Joe's and buy a bunch of vegetables, and suddenly I'm a vegetarian for the rest of my life. Now, obviously, I'm not the best vegetarian because I still eat a bunch of crap, but I don't eat that same crap. And I wonder if that wasn't that kind of thing, where it's like some inner thing clicks and goes, you know what, if you keep eating this red meat or whatever it was, you're going to die. If you keep eating hoagies, you're going to die. So we're not doing that.
Well, I mean, I've always said, and I think you and I have broken bread enough times that that I use an absurd amount of salt. I feel confident that we were standing in the kitchen one night eating spaghetti or something, and I started putting salt on something, and Lisa says, "Jesus, will you lighten up with that?" I am a fiend with salt, and yet I go to the doctor, and I in the back of my head, I'm like, is my blood pressure going to be bad now? Is that what's happening? I'm approaching 50 now. I'm like a year out, and is that what's going to happen? And yet every time I go and he takes my blood pressure, I go, because he doesn't say. Most doctors don't say. You just got to go, is this good? Oh yeah, blah blah over blah blah. And I say, well, what does that mean? And he says, well, you're like 18. That's what that means. And he looks at me and he goes, I'm extraordinarily jealous because, at your age, I was this. And I know a lot of people my age that are on blood pressure medicine. I mean, yet I eat copious amounts of salt, drink gallons of Pepsi. I eat decent. I eat vegetables. I'm a lot better than I used to be. But I've always told people, I eat what my body tells me to eat. And so if I'm consuming that much salt and nothing's going wrong, that means it needs it for something. Like, I don't question that, and I don't blame you for not questioning it either. I think your body knows what it needs, and yeah, I could totally see something like that happening with you, that one day it would just say, no, I've had enough. No, I'm done with McDonald's. Yeah, I can totally see that, because that more or less has happened to me, but not as switched off as it happened for you. You had it really suddenly. I used to love McDonald's and Burger King and Geno's and all these places, and I can't stomach them anymore. Like, I really can't.
Yeah, well, now that you've said that, the fact that I haven't stopped eating sugar yet, anyway, I was thinking maybe erroneously, that my body would just stop eating it once I didn't need it anymore. Or once it was maybe not need, but maybe if it was going to kill me. I did have a weird experience a couple of nights ago where I was lying on the couch, and it might have been something I ate. I don't know. But I was just lying on the couch. I was watching TV, and all of a sudden I felt like I was in a weird, tripped out state of mind. And one prevalent thing that just kept running through my head over and over and over again is that I do have to stop eating the crap that I'm eating. And I had like one thing of ice cream in the freezer, and I was like, well, I'm not throwing that away.
Right.
So maybe I'll make that the last thing. But as this was happening, I don't know how to describe this, but if you've ever just been in another state of mind, or even in a sugar coma or something like that, where you just feel like your sense of self is recessed, and I don't know. And I'm just hearing my own voice say this over and over again about, you got to stop eating this crap. It's time. It's time. It's time. I'm actually thinking to myself, yeah, but once I snap out of this, I'm going to be fine. Like, I was tempted to call somebody at that moment, but I realized even the act of calling someone would snap me out of it, and then it wouldn't matter to me anymore. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Like, you feel like once you're snapped out of it, it's not going to matter to you anymore.
Right.
Which was completely different
in that space.
Yeah, it only matters in that space, but completely different than walking to Trader Joe's. So, and lo and behold, I have not given up sugar or anything. So, I don't know. I don't know if that was an actual warning or just a sugar high. I don't know.
I mean, I'll put it to you this way. I most of the time I take something from home to eat for lunch at work, and I work in an extremely high pressure job. And I go to work. When I leave work at work. But most of the time I'm taking, but occasionally I forget. I forget my lunch in the refrigerator, and I stop at Royal Farm in the morning to get a V8 and a Pepsi. Okay. That's my morning. A V8 first, Pepsi the rest of the day. And I roll in there and I say, well, I got to get something for lunch. So what is the cheapest and easiest thing to do for lunch? Well, you could buy the Stouffer's lasagna single serving, but it's $6. You really want to spend $6 on that when you can go to the store and buy it for $2? I don't think so. You know what you go for? You go for that big bucket of sodium I like to call a cup of noodles. And I buy a cup of noodles that should be called a bucket of noodles, because it is a bucket. It's about half the size of a KFC bucket, and it's filled with ramen noodles and a sodium. And I eat them. I eat all of them at one time, and I drink the broth. And about 5 minutes afterwards, my heart starts pounding and I get very warm. Now, I know what that is, but it doesn't make them any less delicious. And I say to myself every time, gotta stop eating those. But yet, in the pinch, I still buy them because they're the easy thing to do. They are no good for you. I know this. So, you know, again, but my body is not saying you can't have those anymore. I know what happens when I can't eat something anymore. I'll be honest with everybody here, and this is probably a little known thing, because I don't think I've ever talked about this. I ate chicken for years. Loved chicken. Loved it. One of my favorite meals was chicken and béarnaise, or chicken and orange juice, and I mean, any which way from Sunday, I would love chicken. I can't eat it anymore. Every time I eat it, I get the runs horribly. And I've always said, you know what? I'm not supposed to eat it anymore. But why am I not supposed to eat it? Oddly enough, I find out that the year that it started to disagree with me so violently was the year that they began a different round or a different brand or more intense injections with the antibiotics, the growth hormones, all of that. That's when my reaction to it started. It's always been there, but there was a newfound, I guess, drug or vitamin or some steroid that they were pumping into these chickens that we were eating, and that was it. Now, if we get an organic chicken, I got no problem. You know, it's kind of like eating Amish beef. We would go down to the Amish market down the street and buy ground beef. Really good, really lean, and taste completely different from what you get at the store. And I would ask him, is this organic? No, but it's really pure meat. It's like there's no drugs in it, this, that, and the other. Great. So the supermarket next door to the Amish market sues the Amish market for selling meat because they sell meat. So the Amish leave. Can't get Amish meat anymore. Got to go back to the grocery store meat. Guess what I get? The runs from the regular beef for about a week. And then it stopped because your body becomes tolerant of it. You know? I mean, there are definite signs, I think, that you can recognize and go, this is no good for me. The end.
Stuff.
You know? Yeah, this stuff is no good for me. You know? But, you know, I think what happened with you with the vegetarian stuff, I mean, was that because you were feeling bad the way you were eating?
I didn't feel bad.
Else?
I didn't feel bad. The only thing I associated with at the time, well, was the Colin Andrews episode, because that had happened. And also, kind of what you're talking about, I didn't really even associate it with, oh, you're going to die if you eat this, because I was eating too much. But a mad cow,
right,
and all of that, you know, antibiotics and that sort of thing. For some reason, I had it in my head that might be it. But the reason why, but I'm not sure. I don't really know. But no, I wasn't feeling physically bad that I know of.
Right.
But maybe my body knew something before I knew it consciously. And
this is what I believe. I mean, I really do believe that. I believe your body will tell you in more ways than one. And oftentimes it's stuff that I really used to like. And all of a sudden I just look at it and I'm like, I just don't want it. I don't know what that is. I mean, you would think if you like, you know, strawberry shortcake, you would always like strawberry shortcake. But for some reason, all of a sudden one day you just go, I don't really want that anymore. Like, I'm done with it. And you haven't overgorged on it or anything like that. It's just, you know, it becomes unappetizing to you.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
Change.
Well, yeah, I think it's that to a degree, but I think it's also there's a point where maybe your body just says, it's like pregnant women, you know, they can tell when food is off, even the slightest bit. Lisa was really bad with that when she was pregnant with Cody. I mean, she could tell you if milk had passed its sell-by date by a day. And maybe we've all got that to some degree, that there is something in us that says, I don't think I want that anymore, because there's something in there that I can smell, not consciously and know, but something that my body is telling me I can't eat that anymore, or that's no good anymore. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know.
Well, I guess there is one more that we could read here and go through. Maybe we'll do that. But I want to share with you a story because I almost forgot it.
Okay.
That will at least make you laugh, the Jeff. So, as my partner was here and we were closing on our place, should I even say I just don't like saying girlfriend. Like, she's not a fiance. I don't know. What do you say?
My significant other.
Significant other.
Your postle Q.
My plus one.
Your postle Q, yes.
My postle Q. I don't even know what that means, but okay, my postle Q. What does that mean, postle Q? I've never heard this.
The person you live with.
Well, I don't yet, but she will be my postle Q.
Okay.
How am I a writer and I've never heard the term postle Q?
I don't remember where I heard it either.
Okay, you're probably making it up. There is no word.
No, I've heard this before.
You probably heard a Klingon yell it on Star Trek. Postle Q.
It could be. Please continue.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, that was more of a gold standard joke than a platinum standard. That's my bad. But okay, so she's here, and so we go to Volcano, and then we're just doing touristy stuff at like the one day that we decided to do touristy stuff, had a major synchronicity. And I should say, and I don't know that this is part of it or not, but it's funny to mention that a listener of one of these here shows was writing to me about his synchronicities. And it wasn't like, oh, I want to be on your show. It was just like, hey, you were talking about synchronicities and here are mine. And they didn't sound very synchronicity-ish to me. They just sounded like, yeah, that's kind of nothing. Like when people like see numbers everywhere and then they're like, oh, that means something. To me, it was like that kind of thing. And I remember thinking as I was reading the email, no, I know what synchronicities are, and this is not synchronicities. And then lo and behold, cut to a day later, and I have one of the most like obvious synchronicities ever, which is, I had a falling out with a friend in July, and I haven't seen this person since then, and haven't wanted to. And now she's been calling me and trying to, tell her side of a story that I know is going to be nonsense. So I've been ignoring her calls, and the last call I got, she was on the mainland. So I knew she was on the mainland. And, she had lived on the Hilo side, but she'd moved. So I knew that much too. So I'm confident now I can go do things in Hilo and not see her. So, my Curly Q, or whatever the hell her name,
Q, yeah.
Right. We go to a restaurant, and I'm like, surely if I'm going to see this woman, it's going to be in this restaurant. It's an outdoor seating, she could walk by and see us. Doesn't happen. I'm like, great, perfect. So next up, I'm like, well, let's go to Rainbow Falls, because I know for a fact she doesn't go there. She doesn't like Rainbow Falls. So we go to Rainbow Falls, so named because often there are rainbows seen there, although I've never seen one. Of course, I've only been there a couple of times. But anyway, we go to Rainbow Falls. We hang out there for a while, and sure enough, she's not there. However, as we're about to leave, in comes walking this friend into the forest of Rainbow Falls as we're leaving the forest of Rainbow Falls. So I'm like, oh, of freaking course. The one place you would never be that you've told me you don't go to is the place as we're leaving. She walks in, and I'm like, ugh. Now, this is a forest, man. This is not like... So she's walking in. She walks in with a person, with a friend. And we have that awkward moment of, oh, are we going to keep up the pretense because we're both with people? And yes, we do. We hug and say hi and all of that. And then she starts doing that thing where she's talking to my Curly Q, talking to me through her, like addressing me, but not addressing me, like talking to her and addressing me. And eventually she gets to the problem, the issue, the elephant in the room. And she starts talking about it, and unprovoked, of course, and giving her, again, nonsense side, which I knew was nonsense to begin with.
Right. And
as she's saying it, over her shoulder, I'm watching a rainbow form. and I'm thinking, go away. She's going to take this as a sign. Get out.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I'm like, oh, great, a rainbow. Look, everyone. And her friend's like, oh, I've never seen a rainbow here before. I'm like, yeah, me neither. I guess it's a sign.
Energy.
So then, yeah. So, but to me, it's a sign that I've got to actually deal with this, not like like, oh, you've got to be friends again. Right. It's just like, no, you got to. It's like a trickster thing of like a wink and a nudge, It's that kind of thing. But here's the really like movie-esque part of this was, as soon as she like started really getting into the topic, her friend all of a sudden out of nowhere jumps up and is like, you know what? I gotta go. I'm not really into this East meets West thing. I gotta go. And I don't know that anyone else caught that she said that, but she literally is like running away. And my friend is like, but what about, do you want to go to lunch maybe? And she's like, no, I gotta go. And she's like, well, should I call you? And she's like, yeah, sure. Call me. And literally ran away. And then my friend turns back and is like, yeah, she just got off a plane, blah, blah, blah. I just got off a plane a couple of days ago and we just happened to meet up. Like, this is her excuse. And to me, it's like, no, you brought her into Rainbow Falls and you were coming in as we were leaving. So she literally, I know she has heard this from you a million times.
Oh, okay.
And doesn't want to hear it again and is like, I'm late for a very important date.
Right.
and then we took that as our cue to leave too, because we were like, oh, great, this is great. Well, we're on our way out anyway. So, and she tried to keep us there and tried to keep us talking. But I just said, look, we'll talk about it later. And, left it at that. But I just thought, wow, she had just gotten off a plane 2 days ago. There she is in Rainbow Falls.
Yeah.
There's a rainbow. It's like, that's a synchronicity.
Well, and if I'm not wrong here, you were going to places that you knew she wouldn't be, right? I mean, that was the idea.
Going to places I knew she wouldn't be, and joking about it with my curly cue that we're going to bump into her. Of course, we're joking about it. We're going to bump into her. There you are. You proved my point once again that what you think about, you bring about, and so there you are. Well, do you see, here's the other thing, or
the bottom line is, I don't think reality cares if you say, I'm going because I don't want to see her. I think that what it says is see her. That's what it hears. It's like a genie. It really is. I know that's like an old secret meme. Tell the genie what you want. No, it really is like the genie, because the genie you'll say, I want $1 million, and it'll throw 1 million deer out in your front lawn. I mean, that is the genie. You say, I've got to go where I don't see her. And what it heard was, see her. You know?
But then part of me wonders, okay, is it that, or is it that it's going to happen and you're having this psychic premonition, intuiting that's going to happen, so you say it out loud?
It could be that too.
Because I always wonder that with, like, when you're like, oh, you start like tensing up about some, I don't know, thing that you don't want to happen, a letter you're going to get or something, and then you get that letter and you're like, oh, I knew it. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe you did. Now, obviously somebody sent that, so that takes like time. It didn't just manifest out of the blue. So how did you know that was coming?
Well, yeah, interestingly enough, in my life at least, I have found that the thing that I worry the most about never happens. Absolutely true.
Huh. Which is what?
The things I worry most about. I mean, like, I will get myself into a situation. I've always said I make my own problems. I don't need anybody else's help. And I think most people are like that anyway. But, whatever concoction of crap that I find myself embroiled in, I worry about the worst possible scenario, whatever that might be. And that scenario never happens. In fact, 9 times out of 10, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 3 that ends up happening. And usually it's something I never thought of happening. I've often found that the thing, I told this to my son and Lisa the other day, the thing that I think about one time and forget will absolutely happen. The thing that I think about twice, 3 times, or 4 times is never going to be. I don't know why that is, but I've noticed it over and over and over through my life. To think about something one time and forget it. A bad thing, a good thing, think about it once and never, and like literally think about it once and it drops away from your consciousness because you almost ran into the back of another car in traffic, or somebody puts a paper on your desk and you become engorged in, some other thing that you're occupied with. It will disappear from your consciousness like that. That is the thing that will happen. That is the thing that will end up being. What is that? I have no idea. No idea. Here's my synchronicity. Two things. Number one, I've been having the triple digit or quadruple digit thing in looking at my watch and my phone. I've since been taking a screenshot every single time that repeatable digits come up on my clock on my phone. I take a screenshot. My phone is damn near full because of this. Okay. It's happening at an alarming rate these days, to the point where it's not only happening with my clocks, but it's also happening with my odometers in my car. I have a trip set. And today I look down and see 33.3 miles, things like that. But here's something. I get up, was it Saturday morning? I get up and TV Land is on the TV. I have no idea why. Maybe my son was watching it the night before. TV Land runs all those old shows you watched when you were a kid, right? And so Gilligan's Island is on. And I remember, I used to watch this show when I was a kid, like every day.
Little buddy.
Yeah, I would, I would watch it every day. And I thought, I saw Gilligan come on and Bob Denver. I thought, I just thought this to myself, like really quickly. I was like, you never, like, he died, right? That's what I thought to myself. Like, he's dead, and I'm pretty sure he died. Now, that was a passing thought. I went in, I made myself some toast, and by the time I came out, Match Game 94 was on or something. I don't know. It was a total passing thought. That later that day on Facebook, here's somebody on Facebook that's obviously paired with me that says, they put a picture of Bob Denver up and they go, yeah, Bob Denver, he's dead, right? How often do you see something in your news feed about Bob Denver? If you're me, never. Never.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's real weird, man. I mean, that's real weird. And there was some other thing that I had thought about earlier. Something really bizarre and completely, I remember exactly what it was. I was sketching around in a sketchbook, a digital sketchbook I have on the iPad, and I started drawing this octopus. I was drawing like a tattoo of an octopus, and just through the art of sketching something up, I kind of made some lines that I looked at when I stepped back from it a bit. I'm like, that could be a skull in the middle there for this octopus, like a skull, a skullopus, where the main body is a skull and then it goes into these tentacles. And I'm drawing this thing. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, I should do something more finished with this. Like, this is pretty neat. Lobo, our friend Lobo, posts a sculpture of a skulltopus. I mean, it's pretty much not exactly what I envisioned, but it's a skull with an octopus. I mean, again, what are the odds that somebody posts something that day that I sketched something that day and go, well, that's interesting. I mean, again, just something so out of the norm of what you would see, even online. I mean, these kind of synchronicities are getting very, very frequent.
Well, what does that do for you? Because for me, it's almost like something that wakes you up out of the dream. It snapped you out of into reality in a way of like, that's right. That's right. Things aren't what they seem.
Right. Yes, that's exactly what it does. Yes. I'm like this. We really, I posted I didn't exactly mean it this way, but I'm telling you right now, I got such deja vu. It's making my heart pound right now. It's really weird. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe, that I came across a video of a bass guitar player with one hand. And the hand that he frets with is the hand he plays with. So everything that he plays is a hammer-on. In other words, it's the sheer force of his fingers hitting the frets and the strings that makes the note. He has nothing to pluck with. Okay? And the guy is a monster bass player. And I just looked at this guy, watched him play his thing all the way through. And I posted it to my Facebook feed and I said, this goes to show me that if you put your mind to something, there's absolutely nothing that you cannot do. Nothing. If you want it bad enough, it'll happen. You can make it happen. And I truly believe that. I really do. I believe that, I'm not saying you don't have to work to get somewhere in this world, but I think a lot of it has to do with your mind and the opportunities that get presented to you. If that synchronistic event can work with Gilligan, right? If it can work with that, it can work in other ways. And so I think that all that you, like what you think about, you bring about, I really do believe that. I think that there is something to that in the paranormal fields. I think there's something to that in synchronistic events. For me, there's no denying that,
Well, here's something on that note that I didn't think of, but, like when I'm driving my car, I am constantly worried that it's overheating. Like, I'm worried that it's going to overheat and it's going to die and I'm going to be stuck somewhere. And I'm always worrying about this. And part of the reason I'm always worrying about it is because I've worried about it for so long that I'm afraid if I let it go, it will happen.
Right.
And so last night, my roommate had to drive my other roommate to the hospital. And his car's dead, so I gave him my car. And when he came back, he's like, Jer, your brake lights won't go off, and the engine was smoking.
So there's that.
I'm like, oh, of course, because I lent the car to somebody. That's why.
Right. Yeah.
Now, here's what's really good about that. So the brake light thing, I don't know what the part is called, but there's this little nub that sort of goes on the brake. I don't know. It's like a little buffering thing. It's like a little plastic thing that is easily replaceable. And the only reason I know that this is the issue is because this is the very first thing that went wrong with my car when I very first got it like a year ago.
Okay.
And my mechanic friend bought replacements, and he installed one and then lost the other. He dropped it and couldn't find it. We both checked everywhere and couldn't find it. And when I went and looked, there it was, right in front of me on the ground. So now I've got that thing, and all I need to do is install it tomorrow, and I should be fine. And that was a year ago. So the very thing that was wrong a year ago is the thing that's wrong now, and I've got the replacement part that mysteriously has reappeared.
Yeah. There you go. What
do you do with that? That's weird.
I think the synchronicity and the thoughts bring about things. I think that's next show. I really do. Because there's a lot that can be said about that. There's a lot that can be said about the paranormal's influence in that area as well. Right. I mean, it goes right down to, the person who's primed to see it. I'll put it to you this way. I don't think that there are a lot of paranormal investigators who don't go out without sitting home, picturing the place, saying, man, if I saw this, I'd really freak out. Or if I saw this, wouldn't that be great? Or if I caught this on tape, wouldn't that be great? And who's to say that these people aren't having these things happen, but are too afraid, again, to say these things because it puts one immediately in a marginal light. This kind of stuff is, this is not the kind of stuff you're going to hear on ghost hunters. You're not going to hear them talking about visualizing having an experience at a certain location, but maybe that's got something to do with it, So, I mean, again, I'm not going to lie. When we went to Mark's that time, I did have expectations. I did. What we got was my expectations, but not what I expected it in full to be. I expected to see Civil War soldiers. That's what I expected to see and experience, was some connection to that. What did we get? We got kids. I didn't expect that, but I got the voices. I got a spooked pair of people. I got everything else. but not as I expected it to be. And more often than not, when I have tried to visualize things or picture how events would go, they do go that way, but not exactly in the way I pictured it. Which I think if you read Jeff Kripal's book, Mutants and Mystics, or Authors of the Impossible, even better one, you'll see that kind of how about this attitude seems to come through. Like, well, here's what you asked for, but not quite as you pictured it. You know, I think that bears looking into a little bit. So maybe we'll do that on the next show.
Well, great. We've got one more listener tidbit, so we'll save that for the next show, too. And
yeah, absolutely.
The fact that you brought up Mark Nesbitt just reminded me what I forgot, which was in the beginning of this episode. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I experienced in that house and also in the Civil War field in terms of, the difference between experiencing this stuff while afraid and while not. But I guess we'll save all of that for next time.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Well, Jeff, thanks.
Well,
thanks for yet another riveting episode.
Yeah, I guess that was riveting.
You've riveted me.
Well, that's great. Glad I can rivet.
Now go take care of that heart palpitation.
Right.
All right. Till next time, everyone.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.